First problem that you did looked like this. You basically have three linear graphs. And for those of you that don't like working with f of x, what did I say that you could change that to? So you basically start with the first one of y equals a negative 3x. Is that in the form of the slope-intercept? Yes, it is in the form of the slope-intercept. So what information do I get from that graph immediately? What? It's going to be a line. But just from that information, that equation, what information do I have given to me? You're given a slope, and you're also given the b or the y-intercept, the slope. And what is the y-intercept? 0. Okay? That's with any of these. You got that information given to you instantly, if you have it in slope-intercept form. So that means if I'm trying to draw a graph using that, you know that I'm going to have to start down here at a negative 3, right? Mm-hmm. Wrong.
Start at 0.
I'm going to start at 0. The negative 3 is the slope. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to have to use my slope and go down 3 to the right 1, down 3 to the right 1, and then I can draw a line. Is that correct? So I draw a line. My restriction was the x has to be less than or equal to a negative 4. So if it's less than or equal to a negative 4, that means I come over here to a negative 4, and all my x's have to be less than that. So that means all the x values over on this part of the graph have absolutely nothing to do with the graph anymore. Nothing. So that means coming over here to a negative 4, I go up to where it contacts the graph, which would be right here. And since it is a less than or equal to, I put a dot. Well, is this x value right here less than a negative 4? Is this one? Is this one? So all those points would be on the graph, right? And which points are no longer on the graph? All of these. So I erase them. Okay? That's the first graph.
Why don't you start at negative 3 and then do it?
In other words, you're saying, why didn't I start down here to negative 3?
Yeah.
Because the y-intercept where that graph crosses the y-axis is at 0. The negative 3 is the slope from that point on. So that's why I didn't start at a negative 3. Because the y-intercept, it isn't really mentioned here, but if I had plus 0, do I change the value of that equation in any way? Nope. Okay, second one I'm going to work with. Y equals x. So if I have y equals x, what two things do I need from that equation? I need the slope and I need the y-intercept. Okay? What's the slope? It's coefficient on the x, so it's 1. What is the y-intercept? There is none, so it's 0. So I'm going to start down here at this same point that I did before. Right here. Okay, I have a slope of 1, which means I have a rise and a run of 1 over 1. Which means it goes up 1, to the right 1, up 1, to the right 1, up 1, to the right 1, etc. Taking my handy-dandy little pencil and a straight edge, I'm going to draw that line. Restriction. I don't like the way this is written, but this actually means that the x is going to have to be greater than 0. At the same time, the x has to be less than or equal to 3. So between what two x values is my graph going to exist?
0 and 3.
0 and 3. Well, 0 is right here. Will that be a closed dot or an open one? Open. That means all of this, x values, is now gone. Right? All of it's gone. Disappeared. How far over do I go? I go over to 3. Well, here's 1, 2, 3, so that means I got to come up to here. I put a dot because it is a less than or equal to. Well, is this value less than 3 for the x? Is this one? Is this one? Nope, so it's all gone. So I'm now 2/3 done, right? Okay, last one that I need to work with is y equals 8. Well, this one should be a simple one because if it's y equals a number, what type of line do you have? Has to be horizontal at this point. So if it's a horizontal line, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have a horizontal line going this way. What are its restrictions? The x value has to be greater than 3. So right here, if I pick this point, is that x value greater than 3? How about here? How about here? Okay, so I come down here to where x is 3, go right straight up to that graph. Will I be putting a dot or a circle? We also just said that all of these points going this way are now gone. Okay, there's your piecewise function. That's the first one you had to do.
I think figuring out the domain and range is one hard.
Okay, figuring out the domain and the range. What does the domain go with? X values? Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
All x values. Is there any restriction on the x? If I took this graph and continued it on up, do I ever run out of x's going this way? Okay, looking at this, I have values between 0 and 3, don't I? And starting here at 3, it keeps on going. So do I ever run out of x values? Ever. So the domain is all real numbers. Okay? looking at your y values. From what I have drawn here, y values go along with the range, don't they? What's the lowest that the range ever gets to? Right here is the lowest point, isn't it? 0. What's the largest that they ever get to? Well, here it stops at 3, doesn't it? Here it stops at 8. Would you agree? Here it goes on forever, doesn't it? So my range is going to be all the y's that are greater than 0. Why didn't I put equal to with that?
Because on the graph it says equal.
Because on the graph right here, wasn't this 0 as a circle? Which means I can't include it, but it's close. That's why I just have y is greater than 0.
So what about the section where they're not?
I'm not going to get that specific with you on that. If you wanted to do that, you would have to have y is greater than 0, less than 3. Y is equal to 8, correct? Y would be greater than or equal to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Y would be greater than or equal to 12. I will be satisfied with that. Because the smallest value could be 0 and it can be almost any value in between.
Can you explain how you got the domain and range?
Do what?
How you got the domain and range?
Domain and the range. I look at my x values. How far over to the left do my x values actually go from here? If I continued this graph, they would go this way, wouldn't they? Right? If I looked at this graph, they're between 0 and 3 on the x, aren't they? The x, or the horizontal ones here, start at 3 and go this way forever. So don't I have them going both ways forever on the x-axis? And that's the domain. That's why I said all real numbers. On my range, which is the y values from what I have graphed, isn't 0 the smallest y? Right? 0 is the smallest y. Where's my largest y? Won't this keep going up and climbing up on the y-axis? So my smallest one would be 0 and it goes on forever. Y would be greater than 0. Okay? All righty.